Good afternoon to all of you. Although Sameer did not introduce me, I'd like to introduce myself. I belong to the Congress Party. I'm a certified anti-national. And many of you are in danger of attending a debate on national security, which of course is in civilized India beyond debate. So if you've braved a Sunday afternoon, scorching sun and come here, be prepared for worse. Let me thank General Huda for preparing this report. But of course, it is a beginning. And I'm glad General Huda said it's not the perfect document. It's a beginning. Much more has to be done. Much more has to be done outside government, and much more has to be done by those who are in government to give shape to each one of these issues so that we have a coherent policy on national security. I want to just make 3 or 4 points. Firstly, war is not an option. And anyone who makes any section of India believe that war is an option is actually misleading the Indian people. We build strong armies, I believe, General Huda, we build strong armies not to win a war, but to avoid a war. I think, therefore, we must strengthen our military capability, not to win a war with anyone, but to avoid a war with anyone. I think if that is kept in mind, many things will fall in place. Unfortunately, in recent times, there has been a lot of chest thumping and drum beating and flexing the muscles as if India has to be prepared to go to war. At the same time, I agree that countries which are not friendly with us would also be doing the same thing. They will be building their military capability. Again, I believe sane voices in those countries will tell the leadership there, we build our military capability not to go to war or win a war, but to avoid a war. So I think we should keep that in mind while we define our policy on national security and build our military capabilities. The second point that I wish to make is, we are in a neighborhood, barring China, we are in a neighborhood where every country is a developing country. India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan. We are not even a middle-income country. India is not yet a middle-income country. We are a lower middle-income country, they say. Now, therefore, we can't aspire to do things which are beyond our economic capacity. When people say that acquire this, buy that, conquer this frontier, we must also remember that there are definite limits to our economic capacity. And our economic capacity has to be carefully apportioned between defense of India and development of the country and development of the people of India. Anyone who has any doubt about what commands the attention of the vast majority of the people should seize the opportunity of an election and go out and watch an election campaign for 2 weeks. You will realize that matters which are being talked about in Delhi are far, far removed from the radar of the people living in a village there. And therefore, while we can aspire to be a great power, we must remember that we are limited by the fact that we are a growing economy and we have still a long way to go to even become a middle-income country. The third point that I wish to make is national security and internal security are not two watertight compartments. Many issues that concern our national security have either consequences in India, or many issues that affect our internal law and order have consequences on national security. For example, if we cannot find a political solution to Jammu and Kashmir, it will have consequences for our national security. If we cannot resolve the Naga problem, it will have consequences for our national security. And if the gross violation of human rights in India, the world is not likely to look upon us with benign eyes. So I think we must keep in mind that issues that appear intractable in India and issues that we are grappling with for many years and for which we have not found solutions will have an impact on national security. The last point that I wish to make is that civilian oversight and civilian control of the military is something which cannot be debated. Ultimately, everyone in this country, every institution in this country is answerable to Parliament. And Parliament represents the civilian control of institutions. There's a growing tendency to isolate individual offices and individual institutions and say these are beyond the realm of parliamentary control, which I think is completely wrong. That is the surest way to compromise our parliamentary democracy. I think for various reasons in the past, and this has nothing to do with any particular government, many institutions have been kept out of parliamentary control. But that's completely retrograde thinking. World over in all democracies, every individual, every institution is accountable to somebody. And the ultimate accountability is to the people of India. And obviously here people of India can only mean the Parliament. So I think the NSA must be accountable to Parliament, the RBI must be accountable to Parliament, the CNAG must be accountable to Parliament, the Chief of Defence Staff, when that post is created, must be accountable to Parliament. And that parliamentary committee would obviously have to be bipartisan, representing all parties in Parliament in the proportion in which they are in Parliament. I think it's beyond debate in a two-party democracy. In a multi-party democracy, these things become debatable. Things are debated. And therefore, the easy answer is, let's not make it accountable to Parliament. But that's the wrong answer. Merely because we're a multi-party democracy rather than a two-party democracy, that doesn't mean Parliament is the final authority and to which everybody must be accountable. I mean, whatever General Huda has said in his report, with great respect, nothing is new. All that he has done is bring all of that together in one report and ask people to focus on these issues so that we can have a coherent policy on national security. There are, of course, nuances which are important. I think some of the aberrations that have taken place in the recent past, the recent years, have to be corrected. Did you know that the National Security Advisory Board was in limbo for about 18 months? Then it was truncated. And then it was partially restored. Now, what kind of a national security policy is this when the whole board is in limbo for 18 months? There was no board. And then it was truncated, reduced to, I think, 4 members. And then it's been restored partially. This kind of whimsicality must be avoided. I have only one matter on which I would like to differ with General Huda. I agree with him that one-off cross-border action or one-off airstrikes is not going to change Pakistan. But whatever we do, we have to make Pakistan change its behavior, which means we must also change our behavior to Pakistan. Prime Ministers, successive Prime Ministers have said, and I think Dr. Manmohan Singh put it effectively, we can change our friends, we can't change our neighbors. If Pakistan demonizes India, and in turn India demonizes Pakistan, and this is the narrative in both countries, we will never be friends. We will never put an end to these border disputes, infiltrations, and killings. Somehow we are mesmerized by the phrase strong government, strong leader, muscular policy. But the real test is that on the ground, there have been more infiltrations in 2018 than in the last 15 years. More successful infiltrators in the last 15 years. More civilian casualties in 2018 than ever before. More military casualties in 2018 than ever before. So how do you claim that this policy is a success? And in a sense, we are forbidden to ask these questions. We are threatened if you ask these questions. But without asking these questions, you can never replace a bad policy with a good policy. You must ask questions. In fact, more and more people should ask questions. If fewer people ask questions, then bad policies will become entrenched. So I think the answer to the biggest external challenge to India, not only in terms of security, but in various ways, is that we must find a way to normalize India-Pakistan relations. I don't think it's unprecedented. Countries which were fighting like Kilkenny cats have reconciled. And there's no reason why one day an Indian Prime Minister and a Pakistan Prime Minister cannot walk into each other's territory and shake hands. I hope it happens one day. But we have to change Pakistan's behavior, for which I respectfully submit. If we want to change Pakistan's behavior to India, we would also have to examine our behavior to Pakistan and change some of that. I'm not saying all that we have done is wrong. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not even saying all that the present government has done is wrong. I don't say that either. But I'm saying, looking into the future, if our children, our grandchildren, I mean, when I was in school, we had the first war with Pakistan. And then here I am 50 years later, and we're still talking about war with Pakistan. So what has improved in the last 50 years? And are we going to leave this like this for the next 50 years and the next 50 years? There has to be some radical thinking, some departure in conventional thinking, by which we can find ways in which India and Pakistan can normalize their relations. I'm not saying we should embrace each other every day, but we normalize relations between India and Pakistan. I think I'll stop here. These are the few comments that I wish to make, but the Congress Party is grateful to General Huda and his team for putting together this report. And we hope to take the discussion forward. If we are in government, of course, we will take it forward very rapidly. And we hope that we can have a coherent policy on national security in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chidambaram. That was a very interesting segue into the discussion. Thank you, General Huda, for your presentation. If I may kick off the discussion, Mr. Chidambaram, if I may probe you a little bit on your remarks just now about how do you expect that we should change our behavior to Pakistan, having covered the entire India-Pakistan relations for the last 20 years, 10 of which you were in power. I think you have probably tried pretty much everything that there is to try. We are still where we were many, many years ago. So I'm curious, what do you think? How do you think what are the new behavior that you would like us to adopt, and how do you think we can change Pakistan's behavior?
I agree. We may have tried everything and failed. But then going forward, it doesn't mean we don't try again. So you have to try and try and try until we have a breakthrough. I think it's not easy. I mean, the most difficult one is to solve the border issue. I mean, most difficult one is Jammu and Kashmir, because that's the bone of contention. The next one is the border. But the border is, in fact, a fallout of the Jammu and Kashmir issue in the 1947 war. And then, of course, subsequent wars. That's the most difficult one. So let's keep that for the end. But there are other areas where we were near a solution. We were near a solution. What is that area in the...
Sir Creek. Sir Creek.
Sir Creek. I mean, very much out of touch. Sir Creek, I think, was close to a solution. And I think in Sir Creek, we should find a solution to Sir Creek. And we should encourage more people from India to travel to Pakistan, because everyone who's traveled to Pakistan comes back and tells me how friendly the people are. I'm sure anyone who travels from Pakistan to India goes back and tells their people how friendly the Indian people are. So why don't we encourage more people from India to travel to Pakistan and allow more Pakistan people to travel to India? Not only people who require medical attention, but even otherwise, why can't we allow more people to travel? Why do we suspend trade just like that? I mean, I think yesterday or day before, they've suspended all trade. But why do we do that? If there has been any aberration, we'll address that one, but you don't suspend trade. See, it's easy to stop something which is ongoing, but it's not easy to start it again. The stop-start approach is wrong. There's one other issue with Pakistan, which I think, like Sir Creek, which we were more or less close to a solution. Siachen, yes. Nitin is very helpful, thank you. Siachen, I think that is close to a solution. So we must try to resolve issues which are perhaps more easily resolvable than the more difficult ones. This Kartarpur is a good beginning, but again it seems to have been stalled. So why can't we complete that task and make sure that Kartarpur becomes a place for Sikhs to visit? So I think there are ways in which we can make it clear that you please change your behavior or change your attitude towards us, and we also will change our attitude towards you in some matter. These attitudinal changes will happen over a period of time, but we must make an effort.
Thank you, Mr. Chidambaram.